Summer camps perform wonders. It's amazing to watch the youngsters change, even after a few days.
They respond to fresh air and clean surroundings,
learn to share,
develop new skills, and new self-confidence.
Most importantly, they learn to respect others
and to love God and nature. This summer, support the Salvation Army as they extend a helping hand behind this shield.
There's never been a better time to buy carpet made at America's top mills. Because at 50% off our regular prices, I'm practically giving them away. Imagine carpets of today's most wanted fibers, installed in your home over genuine rubber padding, half priced at $9.99 to $12.99, Friday and Saturday. So come to Kaufman. Hurry, don't wait. It's not every day I give away carpet at half price and include padding and installation, too.
Kaufman, the carpet experts, we've got it all.
Now could be the best time to make your deal on a new truck during your Toyota dealer's big truckloads of truck sales event. Hundreds must be sold to make room for truckloads of more trucks. Like these gas-powered Toyota trucks with more standard horsepower, more standard payload than Chevy S10 or Ford Ranger. Make your truck deal now. Your Toyota dealer is giving big trade-in allowances that could save you more money during Toyota's big truckloads of truck sales event. Hurry, stock is moving fast.
Rizzuto for the Money Store, where we specialize in first and second mortgage loans for qualified homeowners as well as home buyers.
We're looking for a low-interest mortgage loan with low monthly payments that we can afford.
All of our loan plans are based on affordable monthly payments. Give me the facts, and I'll suggest a plan that's right for you.
For instant approval on first and second mortgage loans, call the Money Store toll-free. Dial 1-800-221-9000.
Join the fun Saturday night at 7 on Too Close for Comfort.
Channel 5, 40 years of fine-tuning Channel 5.
Good morning. This is Tom Gregory with late news headlines, sports, and the weather from the Channel 5 newsroom. The international headlines. Cuba's Fidel Castro says no one will get anything from Cuba by using force, but he says gestures of peace can lead to talks. In a speech before more than 100,000 Cubans Thursday night, Castro delivered harsh criticisms of the U.S., but indicated a willingness to talk with Washington. Castro reflected on his quarter of a century in power by noting that U.S. administrations since the 1960s have refused to normalize relations with Cuba. But the Cuban president made no personal mention of President Reagan during his 3-hour speech, and he expressed a willingness to discuss negotiated settlements to the guerrilla wars in Central America and Southern Africa. Jesse Jackson, who met with Fidel Castro last month, is charging that President Reagan might launch a war in Central America. The former Democratic presidential contender says such an action would be aimed at increasing Mr. Reagan's popular support and enhancing his re-election chances. There has been no reaction as yet from the White House. The president did have something to say Thursday about Walter Mondale's campaign pledge to quickly end the secret war in Nicaragua. Mr. Reagan said his Democratic foes should just admit that the Sandinistas are only totalitarian thugs, as he put it. Leftist rebels ambushed a military patrol and killed 13 soldiers in a 5-hour battle along El Salvador's main highway. The sources said 17 other soldiers were wounded in Thursday's fighting on a section of the Pan American Highway about 75 miles east of San Salvador. They said a large number of guerrillas were killed and wounded. 2 Republican senators are saying after a closed meeting with Secretary of State Schultz that the United States is moving closer to talking with the Soviets about nuclear arms and space weapons. These top national stories. President Reagan has let it be known that he will fight Democratic vice presidential nominee Geraldine Ferraro for the allegiance of Italian-American voters. Before returning to the White House, Mr. Reagan ended a 2-day campaign foray Thursday in Hoboken, New Jersey. Speaking before a group of churchgoers, the president took direct aim at Ferraro's pro-choice stand on abortion. He said his administration is for life and against abortion. Federal regulators are defending the government's $4.5 billion rescue plan for Continental Illinois National Bank. Without the bailout plan that was announced Thursday, the regulators say dozens of smaller banks with money in the Chicago institution would have gone under. The plan requires the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to buy off most of Continental's bad loans and pump in $1 billion in capital in return for an 80% stake in the bank. FDIC Chairman William Isaac says the arrangement was the least expensive for his agency. It's now up to the House to consider a measure that would give Social Security recipients a cost of living increase next January, even if inflation is below 3%. The Senate gave its approval to the plan Thursday night, just 2 days after President Reagan announced support for the idea. Current law says cost of living raises won't be paid until the Consumer Price Index rises above 3%. The Senate has also voted to require states to establish procedures concerning seriously handicapped infants and life-saving medical equipment. Senator Christopher Dodd, a Connecticut Democrat, says the measure is worded to make the decisions on whether to withhold or grant treatment rely heavily on reasonable medical judgment. The measure was drawn up following publicized cases in 1981 and 82 in which medical treatment was withheld from such babies. The House of Representatives has voted to grant students permission to pray silently in public schools. The prayer language, passed on a 356-50 vote, has gone to the Senate on an amendment to legislation extending federal support for a number of education programs. President Reagan supports silent school prayer, but is not happy with the cost of the entire legislation and has threatened to veto it. The government says cooling costs took extra money from most American households because of the June heat wave east of the Rockies. The government report says the nation's air conditioning bill for June was $3.3 billion. That's $136 million above normal. 8 protesters who had admitted to breaking into and vandalizing a defense plant in Orlando, Florida, have each received 3-year prison terms and $2,900 fines. The protesters, known as the Pershing Plowshares, had broken into a Martin Marietta plant that makes parts for the Pershing II missile. Willie Mae Big Mama Thornton, a giant in blues music, is dead at 57. That's according to a mortuary official in Los Angeles, who says Thornton was found dead of a heart attack at a boarding house where she lived. Thornton was seen as rock singer Janis Joplin's primary influence, and she inspired Elvis Presley. On the local scene, the signal operator who apparently put 2 trains on a collision course that killed 1 and injured 115 others in New York City 4 days ago was new on the job and may not have received sufficient training, according to Federal Railroad officials. The operator, Rodney Rosemond, was given instructions to block eastbound traffic while a train heading west used the track, Amtrak President W. Graham Claytor Jr. said Thursday. However, a Boston-bound train passed through the signal. In North Bergen, New Jersey, 8 people were injured, 2 of them critically burned, when a car careened into 2 others parked at gas pumps at a service station, causing an explosion and fire. 2 men in the car that crashed into the pump suffered severe burns, one over 80% of his body, the other over 50%, after being trapped inside, said a patrolman. All of the injured, including a policeman, were taken to nearby Palisades General Hospital, and the 2 burn victims were later transferred to Hackensack Medical Center. The names of the injured were not immediately available, but the police spokesman said all but a 17-year-old with a possible broken leg were treated and released. In Jersey City, the city's water department worked through the night to repair a water main rupture that left 30,000 city residents with little or no water, according to officials. The pipe burst about 1 p.m. Thursday when a truck or car backed into a fire hydrant linked directly to the 36-inch main, said a police dispatcher who would not give his name. The line ruptured and created a sudden and dramatic drop in water pressure, leaving many of the city's 270,000 residents in the downtown area with dry faucets or low water pressure. After picking 6 winning numbers in the New York State Lottery, Venaro Pagano is $20 million richer and headed for the record books and a higher income tax bracket. Pagano, a retired carpenter from the Bronx, turned in his winning ticket Thursday for a $20 million jackpot that New York's lotto game officials say is a world record for any individual. Now turning to sports. In National League Baseball, the Giants shaded Houston 3-2. Atlanta outslugged Los Angeles 5-1. The Expos topped the Pirates 5-4, and the Padres pounded out an 8-2 win over the Reds. In the only American League action, Boston blanked the White Sox 7-0. The Detroit at Cleveland affair was rained out. Speaking of the weather, current temperature reading at 73 degrees, humidity right in the middle at 50%, barometer 30.1 inches, and it's falling. Cloudy with occasional light rain early this morning is the official word. The lows in the mid to upper 60s. Damp and cool later today with rain much of the time. Highs in the low 70s. Saturday, variable cloudiness and cool. Chance of a few showers. High in the mid 70s. Repeating the current temperature reading, 73 degrees. And there you have the late news headlines, sports, and weather from the Channel 5 newsroom. Good morning. Tom Gregory reporting.
When the world should all be sleeping and a melody comes creeping, it's no cabaret, but the milkman's matinee.
They say that New York is the city that never sleeps, and we're just getting warmed up on America's original all-night music show. This is Marty Wilson with a personal invitation to turn on that radio for the Milkman's Matinee on WNEW 1130 on your AM dial. WNEW, where the melody lingers on.
Join the fun Saturday night at 7 on Too Close for Comfort.
Channel 5, 40 years of fine tuning. Channel 5.
Are you sensitive to ridicule? Do your cheeks burn when people put you down? Does mockery make you angry, flustered, panicky, painfully self-conscious? When others laugh at you or belittle you, do you feel hatred for them and pity for yourself? A friend of mine quit drinking once. However, he couldn't resist hanging around gin mills. He stood at the bar and drank soda. One day, a guy at the bar said to him, "What are you, a broad? Can't you drink like a man?" The other guys at the bar laughed. My friend couldn't take the ridicule. He knew he was an alcoholic and he knew he shouldn't drink, but he couldn't tolerate mockery. "Give me a ball and a beer," he finally told the bartender. He went on a long drunk, and a few weeks later, his wife and kids left him. Sensitivity to ridicule cost the guy his family. He finally made it back to Alcoholics Anonymous, but he paid a terrible price. There are a million instances like this. We have all experienced the awful discomfort of being laughed at derisively. Sometimes we've handled it well, and sometimes we haven't. Jesus provided the ultimate example of courage and faithfulness in the face of public humiliation. The gospel describes the scene during his crucifixion. The people stood there watching. The leaders jeered at Jesus, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself if he is the Messiah of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also made fun of him, offering him their sour wine and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." So in addition to physical suffering, Jesus knew terrible emotional agony too. The people Jesus came to save turned on him and tormented him. He accepted their ridicule, mockery, and hostility without lashing back. The put-downs today sometimes come from unexpected sources, making it difficult for followers of Jesus to know how to react. Ironically, certain church professionals are sometimes guilty of a smug, supercilious, holier-than-thou attitude toward their fellow Christians. These alleged Christian leaders tend to a haughty disdain for the rabble in the pews. They have an ugly tendency to bully the ordinary churchgoer. The ordinary churchgoer who doesn't share their enlightened and exalted views on everything from foreign policy to homosexuality. They like to make you feel guilty. They hint that you are reactionary, ignorant, intolerant, uninformed, prejudiced, narrow-minded, uptight. It is easier and simpler to ignore evil rather than confront it. For instance, alcoholics like my friend should stay out of saloons. Then nobody can bully them into drinking. A teenager whose peers jeer at him or her for refusing to smoke pot or drink beer should simply avoid that particular group of peers. They can't bother you if you aren't around. The thought of Jesus is always heartening. Even one of the criminals being crucified with Jesus joined in ridiculing the Son of God. "Aren't you the Messiah? Then save yourself and us," he mocked. But the other criminal rebuked him. "Have you no fear of God, seeing you are under the same sentence?" The good thief said, "We deserve it after all. We are only paying the price for what we've done. But this man has done nothing wrong." The good thief turned to Jesus and said, "Remember me when you enter upon your reign." And Jesus replied with words that have strengthened and consoled martyrs and saints and ordinary Christians down through the centuries who have known rejection and ridicule. I assure you, this day you will be with me in paradise.
This is television station WNEW-TV, Channel 5, New York, owned and operated by Metro Media Incorporated, with transmitter atop the World Trade Center and executive offices and studios located at 205 East 67th Street in New York City. WNEW-TV operates on an assigned frequency of 76 to 82 megahertz as authorized by the Federal Communications Commission. Some programs and portions of programs presented by this station have been recorded. WNEW-TV's entire broadcast schedule is a copyrighted original compilation work. No recording, retransmission, or other use may be made of WNEW-TV's programming without the express prior written consent of Metro Media Incorporated. Good night.